Welcome to r/Tales from Tech Support, where we get to have a little chuckle at the technologically disadvantaged. Like me. I'm Uncle Reddit, and have I got a story for you. Happy Saturday night. Well, for a lot of you guys it'll be Monday morning when you see this, but you know. For me, it's Saturday. Let's read some stories. Document your network or else. Way back at the turn of the century, 2001 I think, I was working in a university computer research department. The guy who had hired me had moved on and I was the only support person around until we could hire someone. Our network infrastructure was pretty primitive. No firewall, no managed switches, and poorly documented cable mapping. Our primary patch panel had over 400 drops. Some were labeled with what room and plate number they connected to. Many did not. The wall plates in many offices weren't labeled, or worse, incorrectly labeled. At this time, we didn't have a cable tracer. One day I got an email from the university computer security guys. They'd been contacted by someone reporting malicious activity from the university. The IP traced back to my department. The IP was on one of my Class C networks, so I went to work to find the malicious machine. We had a lot of students running self-administered systems in those days, so this wasn't completely unknown. The problem was our switches were so old I had no way to find which switch port was connected to the bad system. I could narrow things down to a stack of switches. Each had 48 ports, although not all were connected. I set up a laptop running a ping to the bad IP and started pulling the patch cables one at a time. Really basic, right? I found what appeared to be the correct connection after a few minutes, so the immediate problem was solved. The system was off the network, but still needed to find the system, find the student, ensure the system got patched, all that jazz. I traced the patch cord to the patch panel. It was labeled with a room and plate number. No problem. I had a submaster key so I could access every office in that area. I walked to the room and found no computer, no monitor, no keyboard, not even a desk. There was a lot of junk, old chairs, a futon, a partition, so the room could be divided for two people. Lots of various trash on the floor. I guess one of the grad students had actually been living in it, against the rules, but it happens. I was really scratching my head. Checked the wall plate in the room. Nothing plugged in at all. There were a couple of old power cords scattered around, but no computer. Went back to the server room and repeated all the steps. Confirmed I had disconnected the correct switch port. I spent some time checking nearby offices in case the wall plate was in a different office, but found nothing. It was really bugging me, so I went back to the original office and did a more complete search. And of course, there was an old desktop computer, no monitor or keyboard, hidden behind the futon and connected to a second wall port. I left a "Please see me" note on the computer, removed the network cable and asked our department administrator who was in the office. No one was. Okay, who used to be in the office? Some student, no longer at the university. Back to the office, yanked the computer. It wasn't a university-owned computer. Student must have bought it himself. I stored the computer and figured I'd wait to see if anyone complained. No one did, so after a month or so, I sent it to e-waste. I also created a project for myself. Get a cable tracer and a label maker and had some students start checking and labeling the drops in the whole department. There were many occasions when I'd get a request to activate a wall plate and spend an hour trying to figure out what patch panel it connected to. So all that noise during my reading? It was the cat, of course. r/Tales from Tech Support Buzzed Edition. Me and the cat. Somebody had too much catnip tonight. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, disorganization, patch panels, things hiding in dirty, nasty, cluttered up rooms. It reminds me of my boys' bedroom, the twins. Pretty much need a tetanus shot before you even walk in there. Math, what a concept. Back in 2009, our company purchased a horribly mismanaged company, mostly for their technical ability and their customers. I was asked to come to the president's office and meet one of the crown jewels of this acquisition. It was a guy we'll call Fred. For background, our IT department falls under the accounting department and headed by the CFO/treasurer. I do not work for or report to the president in any way, but professional courtesy he usually gets what he wants, for the most part. Fred seemed nice enough. We exchanged pleasantries, and the president mentioned that he would be needing a new beefy, top-of-the-line PC for his new venture. I told him no problem, just let me know the specs and I'll get it done, and I went on my merry way. Later that day, the president asked me to stop back by his office for a little chat. Towards the end of the day, I swung by his office. The president wanted to let me know that Fred and his teams were really smart guys and that they would probably be the IT team for the company someday in the future. It would be the best to really do a good job on this, as this guy would likely be my boss at some point in the future. So I was already kind of bristling at this because, as it stood, I was in charge of IT, even if it was only me and one other guy, and I didn't like the idea of a demotion. Then he handed me a piece of paper with the specs that Fred wanted and needed to be able to work properly. It read, going from memory, as follows. HP or Dell laptop must have Intel i7 720QM, Windows 7, 32-bit, 32GB of RAM, 500GB HD, ATI or NVIDIA graphic card. I kind of snickered and said, "Can we call him?" We got Fred on the phone. "Fred, did you mean to specify Windows 7 64-bit? "No," says Fred. "It has to be 32-bit. 64-bit won't work with the applications I use." "Okay, so then we'll drop the memory down to 4GB. "No," says Fred, "I need 32GB or I won't be able to work efficiently." So I tell the really smart guy that 32GB won't work in a 32-bit system. He insists it will. He knows what he needs and what he's doing, and just order it the way he specified. He can configure it to work just fine. I tell him that I'd love to see this, as it basically breaks math. Long story short, I ordered it, and lo and behold, a 32-bit system can only use 4GB of memory. He tells the president that I must have done something wrong with the setup or something on the network was preventing it from using all 32GB. Facepalm. Later in the week, my CFO/boss wants to have a meeting with me to discuss why we can't configure it the way he wants and what we can do to solve this issue. So I go to the meeting and my boss asks me, "What's preventing you from configuring this the way he wants?" Math. Math? Yes, math. You see, what 32-bit and 64-bit means is how many address registers a computer can access in memory. 32-bit means it can access 232 address registers, or a little over 4 billion ones and zeros, or 4GB. That's it. It's not up for debate. I can stick 106 of memory in there and it will still only use 4GB. It cannot be changed because you cannot change the math. Did you explain it to him? No, I did not, because he said he wanted it that way and he could configure it to work. "But," said the CFO, "you said it couldn't work. What can he do to make it work?" "Nothing." Again, math. In the end, Fred said he would just deal with it. It lasted about 8 months and was asked to leave after he spent $7,500 at a Vegas strip club with clients one night. Apparently, math was never a strong suit of his. Oh my god. We used to have guys, when I was a commercial construction superintendent, we had guys like Fred. Nothing was computer-based back then. We had computers for email and, fax machines. Ugh, the bane of my existence back then on a job site. These guys would just totally blow their expense budgets out of the water for the month and, take clients to lunch and things like that. It's amazing. Had one guy running job sites. I think we were lucky, honestly, that he had the blueprints facing the right way around. That's about as much as I can say for the guy. How you doing back there? Everything alright? Magically changing network addresses. Another story from days working support in university. Several years ago, my department outgrew the office space in our building. We made a deal with another department in the building next door to get some additional offices. In return, we provided computer support. This wasn't too hard since their computer needs were not as difficult as ours. Plus, the network was 100% maintained by our campus network team. Late one afternoon, I got a call from a graduate student in the other building. The desktop system he had appeared to be working, but he had no network access. I thought maybe the network card was bad. This was an older system that used a PCI Ethernet card. So I grabbed a spare and headed over. Since this machine was on a different campus network than our department, it used a local username and password, like a laptop, so we could log in even without any network connection at all. I logged in and started troubleshooting. Checked the network configuration and restarted networking. Linux box using DHCP. And it got an address. So I was stumped for a moment. I kept poking around and restarted networking. Forced getting a new DHCP lease. Stuff like that. And then the shoe dropped. I was getting an unroutable address. 192.168.x.x. When I knew that, the campus DHCP server gave out addresses in real university IP space. I checked another computer in the same office and it had a university IP. Since unroutable IPs were blocked at the building gateway, no surprise this machine had no internet access. At this point, I guess someone in a nearby office had probably plugged in a wireless router so they could have their own private Wi-Fi. And it was configured to serve DHCP on the wired side. I looked around the office, but there wasn't anything there. I restarted the DHCP client on the computer a few times and finally got an address on the proper network. I told the student that he should be okay for the rest of the day and called the main network guys and explained what I found. They asked me to try and find the rogue DHCP server, but I explained I had no keys to any of the offices and it was almost 5 o'clock, so sorry, I was out of there. I knew they had master keys to every building and office, unlike me, so it was up to them. I found out the next day someone had come over and searched around until they found a router and yanked it. I'm guessing they left a nasty note for the owner. Yeah man, colleges and universities are pretty strict about that stuff. They don't want anybody adding or taking anything away from their digital systems, ever. Shoot, 10-12 years ago our local community college over here, it was like pulling teeth to get a password just to get on to check your email or join a class. Amazing. How I saved the company business with dosbox. First and foremost, sorry for any mistakes. I'm not a native English speaker, first time poster here and not caffeinated yet. It's still early in the morning here. So back in 2016 I had my real first job as an IT tech. I was already doing some IT support in my previous jobs, but it was more because I was filling the gaps rather than a real IT job. I was doing hotline for a company that is selling a software for laboratories. In reality, I was doing all type of IT support, depending on which customer was calling. One day, one of the customers I had a lot of interactions with called me. Since our IT guy was on a sick leave, he got burned out. I was doing more than just support for our software for them. My boss had to deal with them, apparently. They decided to renew their old computers to newer ones while their IT guy was off. I'm talking throwing some XP, SP1 computers for Windows 7 computers. Why Windows 7? They needed computers with a serial/parallel port. Don't remember which one of the two. And those were the only ones with the appropriate ports. That's where stuff went south. My mission? Make their 20-ish-year-old printer, a very specific one that prints stuff that gets on the testing tubes, compatible with their new computers. The printer was using serial/parallel. They used to have an all-in-one program made by their previous IT guy, the 16-bit program. New computers are Windows 7 64-bit, not even Windows Pro. So my first plan was to find some updated programs to make the things work. There should be at least some 32-bit drivers, right? Lol, didn't find any updated single piece of software for that stuff. After half a day of searching, I came to the conclusion that I would have to make their old program work. Luckily for me, I've been in an association that does retro gaming for years by that point, so I thought, could that all-in-one program run in DOSBox? And it did, mostly. It wasn't able to directly communicate with the printer, so what I ended up doing was creating a batch file that was running in command line. Their old program into DOSBox. DOSBox prints in a virtual printer, which is a text file. When it's done, the text file gets pushed through serial/parallel to feed the printer. And printer gets stuff done. And it worked. It worked quite well, actually. It took me 2 days, but it did work. The printer got replaced a couple months after that because it broke. Oh well. Yep, one of life's little realities is we gotta wear many different hats for whatever jobs we're doing. Very rarely do we get to just specialize in one thing. I'm self-employed in a couple different ways. My day job, we do manufacturing and retail sales and web sales and things like that. And, you know, I got to do promotion, bookkeeping, marketing, that's the same as promotion, production, packaging. And then I get to talk to you guys at night and read and blow off some steam. Beer helps once in a while. By the way, did you see what I did there with the many hats thing? Yeah. Mr. Know-It-All does not know it all. A while ago, I got a funny ticket from a well-known problem user. He had it all, thought he knew everything, was impatient, acted disrespectfully, and best of all, throttled his system every chance he got. I can't count how many laptops this guy went through under my care. One day, he put in a ticket about not being able to connect to the VPN. My stomach sank, and I knew I was in for a bad morning. Usually these issues aren't too complicated, but this guy took things to another level with his complaints and general bad nature. I start off by making sure he has the right access. Check. Next I look at the firewall logs to see if there's any errors coming from his system when he tries to connect. There are some errors, but they actually don't point me anywhere useful. I'm a bit lost at this point and illogically try to ping his machine just because I don't know what else to do other than tell him to reinstall his VPN client. Surprise, it works. Oddly enough, it doesn't have an IP from the VPN's DHCP scope, which makes no sense. I fired back a carefully typed email asking where he was connecting from. He replied, "From Company HQ, Building D." Turns out this genius was visiting the company headquarters and trying to connect to the VPN, but couldn't figure out why it wasn't working for him. He could have accessed everything on the network without the VPN, but instead tried and failed, then got frustrated and made a ticket. Of course, upon realizing his mistake, he left no reply, whereas on other tickets, he will leave complaints if the solution doesn't perfectly fit his needs. Moral of the story, everyone makes mistakes, even people who act like they don't. Ah, the company know-it-all. Know him well. I love people who think they know everything. Rarely do they know anything of any importance. But the little bit of information that they do have makes them feel so superior and so smug. How we doing? Oh yeah, you're gonna be hungover in an hour. Do me a favor if you would right now. Check out one of these videos right here. I think you'll like them. And thanks for hanging out with me tonight. Monday morning, Saturday night, whatever. It all blends. If you get a chance, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and click the little bell icon so you don't miss the fat, buzzed guy telling you stories. See ya.